Present Councillor Anderson, Barker, Brogan, Brown, Councillor Carmichael. I'm not sure if we've got Councillor Carmichael in the meeting. Just check. We have Councillor Carmichael. We have present Councillor Convery, Corbett. We have apologies from Councillor Cowan and Councillor Clark's substituting. We have present Councillor Cowie, Devlin, Dewar. We have apologies from Councillor Fagan. We have present Councillor Ferguson Miller, Councillor Gowland, Councillor Horn. I'm not sure if we have Councillor Horn in the meeting. I'll just check. We have Councillor Horn. We have present Councillor Johnson Dempsey, Councillor Kerr, Councillor Lennon. I'll just check if we've got Councillor Lennon. Yeah, we have Councillor Lennon present also. We have apologies from Councillor Lockhart and Councillor Lambie substituting. I'll just check if we've got Councillor Hugh MacDonald. We don't seem to have Councillor MacDonald in the meeting. We have Councillor McCallan, Councillor McKeary, Councillor McLachlan, Councillor Nugent, Councillor Toner, Councillor Watson, and I'll hand back to the Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tracy. Item 1, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interests? Don't see any. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 14. Can I move the minutes of the meeting?
I'll second them.
Thank you very much. These are agreed as a correct record. Item 3, revenue budget monitoring 2024-25, pages 15 to 24. Can I invite Louise Harvey to speak to the report? Louise.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. This is the second report to committee on the revenue budget for the period 1st of April through to the 4th of October, which is period 7 of our financial year. The main financial implications of the report in paragraph 5.1 on page 15. The resource is projecting an outturn for the financial year 24-25 of a break-even budget position. This is outlined in the attached appendices from A through to G for each of the services, and in the main represents underspends in our employee costs. And these are supporting costs of transport across various services, as well as an under-recovery of income in school meals and parking. There are additional costs for supplies due to the cost of bins, the cost of IT, overspends in property costs due to the costs within our depots, and also the cost of cleaning and janitorial equipment, and also within admin, the cost of medical costs. And there's also additional financing charges within the leasing line as well. Budget variants are proposed as set out at the bottom of the appendices, again in appendices B through to G, and these reflect updates to the community enterprise budget since we last reported on the 14th of July through to the 14th of October position, and in the main reflect a couple of main areas: transfers from and to corporate items in respect of funding for rates poundage and procurement savings, budget realignment to reflect how we deliver our services within within waste and support, and also transfers from reserves to reflect the expenditure commitments that we have around the Frontline First programme, Strategic Waste Fund and our strategic investments. So if I can refer committee back to paragraph 2, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the forecast to the 31st of March of a break-even position on the community and enterprise resources revenue budget, as detailed in Appendix A of the report, be noted, and that the proposed budget variants are approved. Thank you,
Thanks
Chair.
very much, Louise. Any questions? Don't see any questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
The report's approved. Moving on to item 4, which is the capital budget monitoring report 2024-25, pages 25 to 28. In this instance, Graham Booth to speak to it. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Again, this is the standard capital budget monitoring report and the second for the financial year in 2024-25, and reflects the budget, spend and outturn position to the 4th of October, which is our accounting period 7. Section 3 gives the background to the report and explains the revised budget includes updates approved by the Executive Committee on the 2nd of October and the 13th of November. And Section 5 details the financial implications. At section 5.1, we're noting the resources total capital programme for the year is £53.679 million, and that includes budget amendments totalling a net decrease of £8.493 million, and these amendments are shown in Appendix A for information. The amendments reflect lower budget required in the current year for the Leisure and Transformation Fund projects to align with the profile of the spend across financial years, and that's £4.9 million. They also include an adjustment for the secondary schools expansion project to reflect the revised timescales of works for 4.7 million, and similarly for the Larkhall Leisure Centre project to reflect the anticipated timing of expenditure, and that's £1 million. Section 5.2 notes the full forecast spend for the year at period 7 of 53.679 million in line with the budget, and actual spend incurred to the 4th of October is 9.193 million. I would then refer committee back to recommendation in section 2 of the report that the Community and Enterprise Resources capital budget of 53.679 million and expenditure date of 9.193 million be noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Graham. Any questions on that report? I don't see any, I don't think. So can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. The report is agreed. Moving on to item 5, the Workforce Monitoring Report, July to September 2024, pages 29 to 36. Can I invite Eileen McPake to speak to the report? Eileen.
Thank you, Chair.
Down there, couldn't see you.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the standard workforce monitoring report for Community and Enterprise Resources, covering the period from July to September 2024. So you'll see that section 4.1 details the attendance statistics for committee, and the resource absence figure for September 2024 was 6.9%. This represents an increase of 1.2% when compared to the last month, and compared to September 2023, the figure has increased by 0.5%. You will note that the September figure is also 0.8% higher than the council-wide figure. And all of that translates to the absence figures in terms of an annual average absence for the resource 24-25 of 6.4%, and that's compared to a council-wide average of 5.6% projected. You will see that in Appendix 1, where the detailed absence figures are, that the resource historically sees an increase in September due to this being the first full month when term-time employees have returned to work. And updates have been given at previous committees on ill health retirals currently being considered for the resource. And at this time, there's currently 5 cases being considered. And in terms of the figure for the year, there's 25 cases that have been concluded this year so far. Managers continue to follow the procedures outlined in our maximising attendance procedures and support employees to remain at work and return to work after an absence. In terms of section 4.2, this details occupational health information and the details are in Appendix 2, and there was 254 occupational health referrals that were made during the period, and this represents a decrease of 104 when compared to the same period last year. And just by way of context, it's important to note that this period that has been referred to for this report covers the transition to Oracle Fusion. And you may well be aware, members from other committees, that there's information that is respectively being recorded, and that accounts for the decrease year on year in terms of occupational health referrals. But please, members are asked to be assured that all the appropriate actions and referrals are taking place and being carried out appropriately. Section 4.3 details the accidents and incidents that were recorded during the period, and there was 45 that were recorded for the resource during this period. And at 4.4, in terms of discipline, grievance and dignity at work, there were 16 disciplinary hearings held during the period, 2 grievance hearings, and there were 6 dignity at work complaints raised. And there are no issues of concern to note relating to the increase in dignity at work complaints that were raised during the period. And then at para 4.5, in terms of leavers, there was 68 leavers during the period that were eligible for an exit interview. And due to the transition to Fusion, exit interview data is continuing to be collated and updated, but we see that the quality of the information that we're gathering will improve moving forward, so that will catch up for further reports to committee. And then finally, at section 5, in terms of staff and watch information for the resource, there has been an increase of 266 in the number of employees in post from the 11th of June 24 to the 14th of September 2024. In terms of the difference, this is around this staggered recruitment in terms of the seasonal intake, as well as our actual turnover that happens at the beginning of the school term in August for the resource. So I'm just referring committee back to section 2 and ask that the employment information for July to September for community and enterprise resources is noted. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Aileen. Any questions on that report? I think there's some things we've discussed at previous meetings, but Ian McCallan?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks so much. And thank you, Aileen, for that report. I noticed there's no counselling service referrals. There were 17 in the last quarter, and there's also a drop in referral to support officers. Is the move to Oracle Fusion the context for that?
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. That's just what I said. Some of the activity around occupational health referrals has been recorded retrospectively, so that's entirely what accounts for that difference.
Okay, thank you.
And Ralph Barker?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you for that report. Just a minor question. Page 49, just make sure it's relevant time just to ask the question.
We're not, sorry, we're not, Ralph, we're not on that report.
I'm on to the next one. Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, that's helpful. I thought there was a great screed of questions coming on that one. I don't see any other questions. Can we therefore move that report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. Therefore, the report's approved. And at this rate, we'll be finished the meeting by past, but I'm conscious there's a lot of items on the agenda, so perhaps people will get as tight as they can on their contributions. Item 6 is the Community Enterprise Resource Plan Quarter 2 Progress Report, 24-25, pages 37 to 74, and invite Michelle Wilkie to speak to the report. Michelle, there.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. The purpose of this report is to provide Community and Enterprise Resources Committee with a Quarter 2 update on the Community and Enterprise Resources Resource Plan. This progress update covers the period April 2024 to September 2024. At item 3, we note the background to the resource plan, which was approved by the Community and Enterprise Committee on 26 June 2024. The plan sets out the outcomes, measures and actions to be managed and delivered by the resource in 2024-25. At item 4.1, we note that the outcomes within the resource plan, and therefore this Q2 report, link with the Council plan outcomes, and the links between these two documents are set out at Appendix 1. At item 5, we give a summary of performance by the resource in implementing the resource plan at this point in the year, i.e. April to September 2024, with more detail contained in Appendix 2. The table at 5.2 shows the number of measures marked as complete, on target, showing minor slippage or major slippage, and also the number of measures which are contextual, i.e. there is no target applied to that measure, or the progress on the measures is not yet available and therefore will be reported at a later date. So we can see from that table that 3.6% of measures are now complete, 76.8% are on track to meet their target, 14.3% are showing minor slippage, and no measures are showing major slippage at this point in time. 5.3% are to be reported later or are contextual measures. At 5.3, we bring out the major achievements in the year to date, and just a note of a couple of those. The fact that 1% of household waste was sent to landfill between January and June 2024, which is well below the target of 5%. 50.6% of properties now have full fibre connection. That's an increase from 43%. 44 road safety schemes have been delivered at Q2. Clyde Bridge was completed in Q1. Green Flag accreditation was retained by Cambuslang Park, Straven Park and Castlebank Park this year. A consultant has been appointed and has undertaken an independent review of council properties, and the £13 million transition fund is helping to modernise the leisure and culture asset base, with phase 1 underway and identification of properties for phase 2 starting. Just under £392,000 has been awarded from the Scottish Government and Strathclyde Partnership for Transport for active travel projects. And at 5.4, we can see that bereavement services and cleaning and catering services all have 95% or over satisfaction rates. Obviously, these are just some of the achievements, and more of these and areas of slippage are included within the Appendix 2. I'd now take you back to the recommendations at 2.1, that this report and its appendices be approved, noting the key achievements and areas for improvement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Can I just observe, if I may, that there's a lot of good news stories in this, as well as being a monitoring report. And I think we sometimes understate the extent to which even things that repeat each year, like the Green Flag Awards for the 3 major parks and things of that kind, and the household waste things, these are all quite significant achievements, really, for the various parties and community groups and different things involved in them. So many congratulations to that, and I hope our PR guys are listening and will give a bit of publicity to some of these things. Any questions on these matters? David McLachlan.
Thanks, Chair. I thought I was going to be behind Ralph since he was well ahead of the game. 5.3, I mean, that is, you're right, Chair, it's a really good report there. And 1% going to landfill is well below the 5% target. A couple of questions. Is the 5% target our own target that's set there? Or is that a kind of a guidance from the government? Is that a kind of national figure? And just on the separation of the waste, because we know there's difficulties when people have contaminated bins now. The operatives will see that when they open the bin if there's stuff there, but if there's stuff underneath it, they don't see straight away that it's contaminated. How is it actually dealt with? And I know I see Kevin sitting here, but I was with Kevin when we went to Dunbar and we watched that. You've seen a really good presentation there and a good tour of the facility and how it all works. But just the separation of the waste, it's something that always bothers me because I know that not everyone is conscientious about it. So that's my two questions, Chair. Thanks.
I think Kevin's going to come in as Kevin Carr.
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the question, Councillor McLachlan. So your first point about the target, it's a national target. So we're well in line with that for the last 2 years, as the report highlights. In terms of your broader question about recycling, so all the recycling will go to a material recycling facility, so all our contractors operate that and it's separated. A bit like you saw actually at Dunbar, where they try to separate some of the materials that they could recycle and the rest goes to the energy from waste plant. It's the same with the recycling operators. You'll see some of that landfill tonnage that you see in the report will be some of the waste coming from our recycling operators that can't actually be recycled. The good news is that that's a really low percentage. So summary for your question is there is still another separation once it gets to the contractor.
Supplementary, Chair.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm curious, and I'm sorry if this might be boring to everyone else, but you know, if it's the paper bin, for example, or the plastics bin, you're talking about small items there. How is it actually separated? At Dunbar, it's a very large facility, and it's not done by hand, as we both know. How do they actually? How is it physically done? How does the separation actually take place?
I
Kevin.
think the best answer to that would be arranging another visit, maybe to one of our recycling contractors. Believe it or not, previously there was actually conveyor belts and a lot of this was separated by hand for some contractors. That was how they used to do it. And that's changed. A lot of the technology now eliminates that. And you use magnets quite often as well for some of the metals in that. And there's other technologies they use, but it is basically a conveyor belt using different things to actually separate some of that.
I would like to see that. Sorry for interrupting you. I thought you finished.
Yeah, we can certainly facilitate that. We'll make some arrangements. But your broader point, there are some times where we'll take a load to a contractor and it's too contaminated even to do that, and the load will actually will go to landfill, it will go to energy from waste.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Davey. And I know you're talking about the kind of further down the line thing, but I mean, we had a report at the last meeting about the experiment in Spring Hall in my ward with the Perspex bins with the slots in them and all that were very successful in reducing contamination. And that has continued to be the case, but I'd just point out that actually involved a lot of work by community waste officers as well as an education element to that. So the more we can get at further up the line, so to speak, the better in terms of trying to divide up the waste. Ralph Barker.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for that report. You can just check if I've got to page 49 yet. I've not got too far ahead.
Yeah, same question, is it? Yeah.
Well, it's the same question.
We wait with bated breath, Ralph.
Very similar to Councillor McLachlan's question. It's a small item, but important to constituents. Obviously, it's a very good report. The amount going to landfill is really good progress. At some stage, not today, just wonder how many lorry journeys there are over to Dunbar. But that's not for today. There was just one little point which affects a few constituents. I don't know, woods, which is waste upholstered domestic seating, and that can that not go to recycle one way or another? Or does it have to go to landfill? Thanks.
Some of it does go to recycling. We're trying to encourage that, but I think Kevin will give us some detail on that.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Barker. You may recall we brought a paper back in June to Community and Enterprise Resources Committee, and it was giving you some of the background on the legislation around WUDs, as it's known, or POPs, which is the materials that old sofas and upholstered items were made of. With SEPA and Environment Agency now enforcing some of the regulations around that, we've had to make quite significant changes to our operation, because what it means is we were able to recycle these items before, but now we can't. So the previous paper was giving some of the background to that, but it was also asking for additional resources, because we've had to set up a separate service, because they can't even be collected with other materials, or it's all classed as that type of material. So unfortunately, that will have an impact on our recycling level this year, because it did go to recycling operators, but this year we can't do that.
So, old sofas, etc., they just go to landfill, and really just wonder what happens to them in landfill. Is it the sort of thing that collect the methane, or whatever?
Unfortunately, that's the only choice at the moment. So they could go to energy waste from waste facilities, but none of them in Scotland are actually set up to take them. So over time, we hope that will change. But at the moment, we don't have many options for it, because a lot of the waste contractors aren't set up for it either.
I may be wrong on this, but I thought from recollection there was some attempts to deal with social enterprises and things to try and remove them at an earlier stage before we deal with them, so to speak.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, we continue to do comms because reuse is the optimum option for this. We don't want them entering the waste system, because the legislation only applies once it's classed as waste. However, if you're donating it to charity, if you're trying to sell on Gumtree, it's still an item of household furniture. Yeah. So we continue to do comms on that and offer advice over the website to discourage them coming into the waste system wherever possible.
Thanks. I thought that might be helpful to your report. I don't think there's any other questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
Thanks very much. That report's approved. Move on to items for decision. Item 7. That's the employment, land and property market market, isn't it? Market analysis report, pages 75 to 84. I can invite Alison Brown to speak to the report. Very important report, actually.
Thank you and good afternoon. This report advises committee of the recently completed employment, land and property market analysis, which will inform future economic development policy and investment decisions by the Council. In March 2022, the Scottish Government published its National Strategy for Economic Transformation, which sets out its vision as being the best place to start and grow business. However, in Scotland, as a nation, we have fallen behind in terms of productivity. To understand South Lanarkshire's position, Ryden have been commissioned to undertake an analysis of our 4 geographical areas. Detailed reports have been provided for each area, and I'd like to talk through some of the highlights. You'll appreciate that there is quite a lot of detail in this report, so it is just pulling out some of the highlights today, but I would highlight that we're intending to come to each of the 4 area committees to talk through the localised issues in a bit more detail. So looking at East Kilbride first, the supply of employment land in East Kilbride is very low, with only 4 sites available, which is inadequate to provide a choice for potential developers and occupiers. One of these sites at Langlands West is identified as a strategic site which will be brought forward to the market in the near future. Industrial properties in East Kilbride were generally constructed in the 70s, and therefore there is a requirement to invest to prevent them becoming obsolete. In respect of the office market at a national level, we've seen firms moving to smaller, better quality spaces. In East Kilbride, it's considered that the current office supply can respond to market demand. Turning to Hamilton, Blantyre and Larkhall, the level of industrial stock has fallen since 2010 as a result of large factory demolitions, with only 3 sites currently on the market. The majority of industrial stock in the Hamilton market was built in the 80s and 90s, and again, it's becoming obsolete, especially in the Blantyre area. Smaller units, under 5,000 square metres, in Hamilton and Blantyre appear to be particularly in demand, and that's reflected in recent take-ups and inquiries. However, there's a very limited supply. In terms of the office market, there is sufficient choice within this area. In Clydesdale, the report highlights that there is a need to ensure that key employment centres have a supply of units, and there's also a need to bring forward fully serviced sites such as the Southfolds Road in Lanark. In Rutherglen Cambuslang, it's a principal industrial location, obviously very well connected to Glasgow and the M74, but vacancy rates are exceptionally low. Demand is focused on, again, on small units between 1,000 and 5,000 square feet, where there is currently no supply. That said, Clyde Gateway are continuing to develop proposals and are currently on site in the Southcroft area with industrial development. The Council's also developing proposals for Cathcart Road in Rutherglen. The conclusions are set out in paragraph 4.7, which state there is a need to stimulate and refurbish existing industrial stock. We should actively encourage the creation of development-ready plots. We should be looking at how best as a council we can intervene. We should be looking and preparing a master plan for the development of Langlands West, and also reviewing the Shawfield area and exploring opportunities to introduce other uses to that area. How might we achieve all of this? Well, the external funding environment remains challenging. However, it's important to develop projects so that we have them at a shovel-ready stage to ensure that we can take advantage of any external funding opportunities. In paragraph 6.3, there is reference to Glasgow City Region enabling and delivering commercial space project. Since writing this report, this project is gaining traction, and I am hopeful that funding will be allocated to councils, which will be considered at the Glasgow City Region Cabinet in February. I appreciate, as I said, there's a lot of detail in this report, but happy to provide further details as required. Taking you back to the recommendations, committee is asked to note the conclusions of the report, and also that this provides the guiding document for future management and investment in employment land and property by the council, and support the next steps, and also note the activity of Glasgow City Region in terms of this new enabling and delivering commercial space project. Thank you.
There's a lot of interconnecting bits here, isn't there, to the whole thing, but it's an important report. Questions? Can I go to David Watson?
Thanks, Chair, and thank Alison for the comprehensive report. That I have asked questions about this sort of thing previously, and it's good to now see that things are now starting to roll and we've got a handle on, or a bit of a handle on what industrial land that we've got and commercial properties. I think a couple of concerns about obviously where we are and the state of particularly East Kilbride and the commercial properties, both private and public. And you alluded to some money becoming available to support maybe some work towards that. How confident would you be, given the state of the state the country's in at the moment financially? And also just another one on Langlands West. We talk about a master plan for Langlands West. I mean, Langlands West was originally to be a large industrial site for basically one user. Are we now talking about breaking that up into pockets and have maybe a mixed commercial site there? Because is it the likelihood of a major manufacturer or distributor or whatever moving in there is unlikely? Maybe get your comment on that. Thanks.
Alison?
Thank you, Councillor. Taking your first point around funding, yes, I am hopeful that there could be a pot of money released at Glasgow City Region for industrial employment land opportunities. The criteria for that we don't necessarily have all the details of that as yet, and also the level of funding. We don't have visibility of that. So whether that is for new build facilities, or whether we can use that for refurbishment of old stock, that's still to sort of come to pass. But I think certainly coming forward, there are opportunities there, and we just need to be able to position ourselves to take best advantage of any future funding. So trying to progress as many of these projects as we can. Your second point around Langlands West. Langlands West has been a development site for many years, and there has been a master plan prepared for that in the past, and obviously Green Hills Road has been upgraded to support future development of that site. This piece of work that we've done by Ryden, we need to reflect on whether that master plan of old is still accurate, it still takes account of where the market is. And we need to ensure that the development plots can fulfil a number of opportunities that might come to us. That said, we do have some interest in the entire site at the moment that we're currently exploring. But if that doesn't come to pass, we need to be, as I say, ensuring that the site can accommodate a range of uses and a range of sizes of units. And whether that's developed by us as a council in part, or whether that's as part of a joint venture, or whether that's just disposal of sites, all of that needs to be explored, and we need to align our thinking with where the market is and this piece of work that Ryden's undertaken.
Thanks very much, Alison. We had John Anderson on before, but he seems to have gone off, so unless John wants to come back in. Any other questions? I don't think there are. Thank you very much. I think this is an important report. It does show the actual value of the economic development work that's been done by Alison and her team since the restructuring of the department. So let's hope that things are able to go forward in a way to take advantage of the funding opportunities as they arise. Thanks very much. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
That report is approved. Can I move on to item 8, Scottish Government Vacant and Derelict Land Fund Programme 2024-25, pages 85 to 90. Ian Ross to speak to the report. Ian.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Sorry, excuse me. Purpose of this report is to update committee on the progress of the 23-24 programme and to seek approval of the proposals for the 24-25 programme of the Vacant and Derelict Land Fund. Excuse me. Section 3 of the report sets out the importance of the funding and you know, reflecting on some of the points in the previous report. This is in part supports some of that work and the bringing sites like this to the market. It's a very important source of funding for us, and as set out in the report, it's not funding that's available to all local authorities. South Lanarkshire, along with colleagues in North and North Lanarkshire and Glasgow, are some of the few authorities that are given access to this funding. The Section 3 also sets out the criteria under which sites can be defined as a vacant derelict land site, which again is quite tight, but working with planning colleagues, we've managed to keep a pipeline of these sites coming forward. Section 4 of the report sets out some of the work that's been done over the last year or so and is ongoing, and picks out 3 of the main projects on which we've been working, and Langlands West is one of those projects about bringing some of the remediation works to bear on that site so that it is ready to move into that next phase of investment and development that Alison was describing. The Clyde Cycle Park has benefited from funding through the Vacant Derelict Land Fund as well, and they are now entering the next phase of their proposals, and discussions are ongoing with them about how that would be taken forward. And Carnwath working on a more town centre site which qualifies for vacant derelict land funding, working with the community there. I think the combination of those 3 projects just sets out the breadth of benefit and range of sites across the communities that we're working with are benefiting from that funding.
Section 5 of the report touches on the projects and initiatives that we are looking for approval to move forward on in the coming year. And again, it mirrors some of the comments in the previous report that Alison gave around development opportunities at Cathcart Road, where we're working on the feasibility of that project to get it shovel ready to move forward. The Clyde Climate Forest, again looking at how the green canopy across South Lanarkshire can be improved and enhanced, working with colleagues across the community, and the Cunningar Loop food growing project, which is nearing completion and just a kind of final element of that project being brought forward. So if I could take members back to section 2 of the report in terms of the recommendations, and just ask that members note the progress in the delivery of the 2023-24 programme, and ask that the allocation of funds proposed for 24-25 of the programme set out in paragraph 5 be approved. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Ian. As if by magic, we move on from the last report to actual implementation proposals for Cathcart Road in particular. Quite a lot of interesting projects there. Any questions on that report? I don't see any questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Report's agreed. Moving on to item 9, which is the Community Benefit Fund's Renewable Energy Fund grant applications, pages 91 to 100. I can invite Kenny Lean to speak to that report. Kenny.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. The purpose of the report today is to approve grant applications to the Renewable Energy Fund. Total value coming to the committee today is £726,470 over 6 applications. Under point 3 is the background of the RAF and the decision making, and at 3.3 the report sets out that in February this year changes were approved at committee to the RAF, and the scale and some of the projects today are a direct result of those decisions in February, with the aim to deliver larger, more strategic and more impactful projects. I'll quickly go through the applications. There's more detail under each of these than I'll be giving. So at point 4, a grant to Colburn Community Action Group for £28,410 to improve a community nature trail walkway as part of the core path network within the Colburn area. At point 5, a grant to Healthy Valleys for £177,543.79 to fund a team leader and 2 project workers over 3 years for organisation overheads and equipment to deliver the Gear Up bike training and capacity building project within the rural area. At item 6, a grant to Lesmahago Development Trust for £200,000 to convert a shop locally known as Billy's in Lesmahago's Abbey Green into a community mini market with pop-up shops, openings and supporting the town centre. At item 7, a grant to the Rural Development Trust of £289,446 to complete, a grant award of £189,446 to complete the final 2-kilometre segment of the core path upgrade from Peniel to Douglas, linking the final link from Lesmahago through Colburn to Douglas. And I would note that the recommendations at the front of the report do not reflect the figure within the figure here. So the figure within the report at point 7 of £189,446 is the correct figure. At item 8, a grant to Straven Town Mill Arts and Heritage Centre for £56,231 to restore the historical building frontage, stonework and roof repairs, including lead works. And the final application, a grant to the Friends of Stonehouse Park for £49,840 to restore and refurbish the Alexander Hamilton Memorial Fountain within the Stonehouse Park, which has fallen into disrepair. I'd also point out at item 12, in terms of the climate change and sustainability and environmental implications, that this is wind farm funds recycling and reusing a number of impactful agendas on the environmental. So at the end of that, I would take us back to the recommendations, and the report seeks, the committee is asked to approve the recommendations for those 6 grants.
Thanks, Kenny. Did I follow you right that that's with a correction to the figure in item 3? of the recommendations?
Yeah,
Because we better just reflect
So-
that in the minutes, I think.
that's going back to...
Item 4, is it?
It's
Rural
under
Development
item
Trust,
7,
yes.
the Rural Development Trust. The figure that is, again, under the recommendations, yes, should be 189,446, not 189,44.28.
Yeah. Okay. That's right, there's a correction there.
Yeah.
All right. I think we shouldn't underestimate the actual work put in by our community colleagues and by Kenny Lean and his colleagues in that section in developing these projects. I think it's extremely important. Any questions on the report? No questions. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
The report's approved. Moving on to item 10, which is the Employability Performance Update Report, pages 101 to 120. And in this instance, I invite Douglas Hattigan to speak to the report. Douglas.
Thanks very much, Chair. And thanks very much for having me along this afternoon. It's the first time that the Employability Service has been able to provide an update on performance since we moved across to Community Enterprise at the start of the year. I'll just take you through some of the kind of key sections of the paper. The services that we deliver within employability can be broadly split into 3 categories. So the first, section 4, is our senior phase work-based learning programmes, which are essentially the programmes that we deliver to pupils that attend school on behalf of education. So the foundation, apprenticeship and graduate programmes. And I'm not going to go into loads of details on the figures because you have them there, but you can see we support around just under 200 young people a year through the foundation apprenticeship programme, and currently just under 800 young people through the graduate programme. So both those programmes involve young people attending college with support from our team as part of their senior phase curriculum, and have been very successful over the past few years. Moving on to our key worker-based employability services, so they're the programmes that we deliver to our key priority groups, which include young people in the last 6 months of school, young people aged 16 to 19, adults who experience a range of barriers to employment, and people with long-term health conditions as a barrier to employment, and young people and adults with learning disabilities. And for the past 2 or 3 years, we've had a significant focus on out of work and low-waged parents through our key worker programmes. The programme then goes into a bit of detail around how those services are delivered. And you can see on page 107 that through our key worker programmes we supported 2,257 people last financial year, with 834 moving on to further training or education and 579 moving into employment. And this year, up till the end of August 2024, from April to August, we've supported 1,169 people from those various key priority groups through our programmes, with 355 progressing to further education or training and 306 progressing to employment to date. The programme then, the paper, then moves on to talk a wee bit about some of the kind of wider performance measures. So the first one at point 8 is our school leaver destination. So a key performance measure for the service and for the council and for individual schools is about the number of young people and percentage of young people that we support into further education, employment or training. And you can see that of the school leavers that left in 2023, so last June, 96.9% of young people progressed to an initial positive destination, which is above the Scottish rate and has been improving in recent years. And then you can see at table 9 the kind of further breakdown of that in terms of how many moved into employment and higher education and so on. At number 9, we have a significant focus on not just the destinations young people when they first leave school, but how they then progress to different things throughout that age range of 16 to 19. And you can see at table 10 that currently 93.8% of all young people aged 16 to 19 are participating in some form of positive activity, whether that's school, college, university or employment. And a significant amount of work goes into kind of maintaining that figure. So our team, in partnership with SDS, do a significant amount of tracking of destinations and essentially finding young people when they're not engaging and making appropriate offers of support. And you can see that table breaks down some of that activity at number 9. And at section 10, I won't go into loads of detail, but there's some further detail around the kind of broader employment situation for people in South Lanarkshire in terms of the claimant count, which is broadly in line with the Scottish rate as it stands just now. And then if you take the opportunity, there's some case studies at the back of the report as the appendix, which just details some of the kind of individual stories of the young people and adults that have been supported through the programme in recent months. And if I take you back to section 2, just ask the committee to note the performance of the service, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Douglas. As you say, this is the first of the reports of this kind. I think it's a very useful report, which I'll certainly be hanging on to. I'm conscious as well that the UK government, there's news today about activities that have been begun by the government with regard to this general area as well. We need to see where that all takes us. I wonder if I could ask you the one particular point at 424 and 433. We see the figures about the uptake in schools and the Grad UA programme, both of which I think are showing reductions to a degree. Can you put that in context for us, please?
Yeah, I think there's been a few challenges around foundation apprenticeships. So we've essentially made this a similar amount of places available to schools, and there's been, as you say, there's been a kind of lower take up. There could be a focus from some schools on increasing the approach from young people to increase numbers of hires in school rather than that progression to college. This is probably anecdotally, but over last year there was a couple of issues from the college point of view with industrial action, which led to later resulting for some of the young people that were on across college programmes, which I think may have had an impact on some of the registrations. But I suppose to be assured, we're working really closely with the schools and the deputy head teachers to make sure that all the pupils are aware of that as an appropriate option. I think the graduate programme you'll see at 433, there's been a slight reduction, but I think that's probably more around as the programme settles down. We kind of count the starts after a number of weeks when young folk have got the chance to kind of get used to the programme, and I think it's just reflected. I don't know if there's a big story there in terms of why that figure's changed, and it's a programme that continues to be well taken up by pupils.
The figures are certainly very large, aren't they, in terms of the intervention we can make. Kenny McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. To an extent, I think you may have already asked the question, but the figure of 93.8%, I think, was given there, of young people going into, I guess, well, not being 93% being employed or in further education, which doesn't really kind of square with the UK figures we hear about, where the figures are figures of unemployment are much higher than that. So I just wondered what your thoughts are on that, and also maybe the rest of the UK should be doing what South Lanarkshire are doing then, if these figures are accurate. Thanks, Chair.
Just for clarity, which bit of the report are you pointing to, Kenny, in terms of the 93% you referred to?
I think Douglas says 93% of people leaving school go into further education or employment.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you,
Douglas.
I think there's two kind of pertinent figures. At table 10, we've got 93.8% of young people aged 16 to 19 in a positive destination. So that does include school. So it's young folk that are remaining at school in the senior phase, at college, at university, and at employment. So it's slightly different from the kind of wider unemployment figure that's reported nationally. And in terms of school leavers, at table 8, we've got 96.9% of school leavers, and that just counts the kind of initial destination that they enter when they leave school. And you're right that the figures are positive for South Lanarkshire, but maybe are quite different from that wider unemployment figure, which there's a wee bit more detail at 10.2.
Okay. Any other questions on that report? Can I then move the report?
I'll second.
And the report is approved. Moving on to item 11. National Business District NBD Shawfield update, and that is one for Alison Brown again, pages 121 to 124.
Thank you. This report provides an update of projects in respect of the National Business District at Shawfield, which is being supported by a variety of funding sources, including the Council's funding of £800,000, resulting in a programme of works totalling £29.1 million. To date, Clyde Gateway has delivered £60 million of remediation, infrastructure and development investment at Shawfield. The overall cost of the current programme of works, either committed or underway, is £29.1 million. The details of the projects and funding sources is set out in Table 1. The UK Government's budget in November reconfirmed that all LUF projects, including Shawfield, and I'm pleased to report that all legal matters have been concluded with Clyde Gateway, and 2.8 million received from the UK Government for Shawfield has been paid to Clyde Gateway. Specific project updates are included in section 4, and with that I take you back to the recommendations and ask committee to note the progress being made at Shawfield, the positive progress being made in relation to the delivery of projects at phase 2, and that Shawfield Project Board delivery provides the governance arrangements for Shawfield projects. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. These, of course, are items for noting. I should have said that earlier. Any questions on that report? I think it's very, pleasing in terms of the financial support. No questions? Can I move the report? Thank you very much. That report's approved. Moving on to item 12, which is Larkhall Leisure Centre. Sorry, I beg your pardon. David. Sorry, just a second. Can you press your microphone?
Walter Brogan has been, he said that the system has crashed and he's trying to get back in. And it might be the same for other members online. It's just worth maybe mentioning that to you, Chair, in case people...
Have we lost anybody? Do we know?
We're just one. Just one.
Just one.
Okay.
Right. We can make some contact with them, can we? Yeah. Thanks very much, David. It's a pity we're still having these ongoing issues, isn't it, from time to time on this one. Sorry, where we got to? Shawfield, we'd moved in second, so we'll move on to Larkhall. Larkhall Leisure Centre replacement, item 12, pages 125 to 130. Gillian Simpson to speak to this report. Gillian.
Hi, thanks, Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide a progress update on Larkhall Leisure Centre. Members will recall that in February this year, the Council approved an additional £12 million to bridge the funding gap, and a project is now underway to deliver a new £23.9 million leisure centre to replace the existing facility. Section 4 of the report provides a progress update on where we've got to date, and this includes the appointment of Hub South West to design and project manage the project, and BAM Construction being appointed as the Tier 1 contractor. The project is currently at concept design stage, and the initial site layout and floor plans have been developed based on a floor area of 2,300 square metres. The proposed plans include a like-for-like 25-metre 6-lane swimming pool with a viewing gallery for swimming lessons and galas, a fitness gym, a health suite, a double-height fitness and dance studio that can be used for fitness classes and badminton, and engagement with the community also identified the need for a community space within the new facility, and that's been accommodated within the ground floor. Over the past few weeks, a series of community engagement drop-in sessions have been held, with providing the community with an opportunity to review the draft plans and also to speak with representatives from BAM Construction and Holman Miller Architects. Various site investigations are currently underway to determine whether sections of the existing centre will require to be demolished as part of the enabling works. As detailed in section 6, the budget of £23.9 million consists of a number of different funding streams, and as detailed in section 7 of the report, the project will be striving towards passive house standards to being energy efficient and bring carbon savings. So just going back to the recommendations, the committee is asked to note the appointment of Hub South West and BAM Construction, to note that the project is deliverable within budget based on the 2,300 square metre floor area, that an engagement strategy has been developed and a number of community engagement sessions have already taken place, and that the programme is on site for site start in autumn 2025 with a completion in summer 2027. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gillian. The report's obviously a staged progress on the Larkhall Leisure Centre replacement. I remember going to the meeting that the party leaders and others were invited to some months ago when there was considerable concern about whether this would ever see the light of day, and this is it progressing. We're very glad to see that. Can I ask for questions and go to Ross Clark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome that this is progressing. Yes, the people of Larkhall deserve a new leisure centre. It's what we were promised, but it must meet the needs and the wants of the whole community. And what we've been hearing so far is that these plans don't. I'm pleased to see the word engagement in the report. One of the bits of feedback I've been getting is that there's been consultation, like a tick box exercise rather than true engagement. I'm not saying that's what officers have been doing, but that's the general impression alongside other council consultations. But I do have a few questions. How did the recent consultation events go? Do we know roughly how many responses we received? I popped into one of the physical ones myself, and it seemed to be going well, but I know there was some initial concerns at the very beginning about lack of notice from maybe the first one or two. Do we plan any more of these consultation events? And will we be consulting directly and specifically with groups and clubs currently using the facility? The plans can look as good as you want, but it's important to know if it will be suitable to host these groups and these clubs, preventing them from having to relocate elsewhere, which we've seen at the moment with the flooring, being done in the current one. And as you might have picked up, I'm happy to come back in any of these, but as you might have picked up, the main point of contention with the plan so far has been the size of the games hall or the fitness and dance studio. Do we know how much extra it would be to make that a full-size games hall, similar to what there is at the moment, at least 4 badminton court sizes? Because the current 1 badminton court is, as I've said, been the main point of contention. Because one of the reasons I know behind there not being a full-size games hall is the plan to share facilities with the academy, and we know the difficulties that can bring with halls not being able to be used during the day and at exam time. Are we any further forward with getting some sort of agreement in place or a plan of exactly how that sharing of facilities is going to work? Because there's been a bit of apprehension regarding that. So any more clarity that can be provided would be appreciated. But again, happy to come back in any of those. I know that I asked a few things there.
Thanks very much. David, do you want to come back on this? David Booth.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Clark. I'll cover a couple of pieces around about the facility itself and the relationship with the school. And maybe I'm hoping either Jill and Alison or maybe Jill can give us a wee bit more detail around about how the consultation events went, because you're closer to that than me. So the first thing I would point out to committee is that this leisure centre is the largest capital project that this council has done out with the secondary school estate since the council was formed. So it's a massive undertaking that we're doing here within Larkhall. So we will be spending that, just shy of £24 million on a new leisure centre. And what we want to try and do is to try and bring as much value out of that budget that we can. And some of the work that we've been doing and engaging with the community on is driving towards that. In terms of your specific question about a games hall, a 4 badminton court games hall, no, the plans currently do not have that. That doesn't fit within the affordability envelope in terms of the £24 million that we've got. But what we do have in the facility at the moment is a badminton-sized court hall that can be extended to form a community room, as you're aware, and we have access, or we will have access to the secondary school games hall, which will be just directly next to the leisure centre and proximity to the leisure centre when it's opened. And where we are with that in terms of the relationship with the school and the centre is that we're progressing well with changing the status of a Larkhall Academy to being just a standard school under the PFI contract to a dual use school. So negotiations and discussions are ongoing with the PPP contractor in that respect, and we anticipate that will have a positive outcome, but it hasn't yet fully concluded. What that will mean is that this facility will work as part of a campus. So in addition to all of the provision that will be contained within Larkhall Leisure Centre, the swimming pool, it will have one of the largest, if not the largest, fitness suites in South Lanarkshire. It will have the hall that I'm referring to in the badminton court hall. In addition to that, operating as part of one entity, outside school hours, we'll be operating a 600 square metre games hall in the school, 280 square metre gyms, and the outside floodlit synthetic pitch. So what that does is it means that it opens up an entirely different way of looking at it. It's about not just being about this leisure centre and what's in that, but about this campus approach. So we're working on that basis. We're making really good progress on that, as I said, in terms of discussions and negotiation with the PPP contractor, and I hope to be in a position to report back in the near future that we've got that in place. I'm less au fait in terms of the detail of the consultation events, and with the Chair's grace, I would pass on to Gillian Simpson for that. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Councillor Clark. Yes, it was great to see you at the consultation event the other week there. We actually held a number of different events, one within the Lighthouse facility, a couple within the existing Larkhall Leisure Centre, and we also attended Larkhall Academy to speak to pupils at the Academy to see what they would like to see in the new centre. All were very well attended, very engaged. Certainly we get really positive feedback in terms of the people who use the swimming pool, and delighted the fact there's going to be a new swimming pool like for like with the swimming gala for the swimming gallery for their swimming lessons and their galas, etc. And the gym goers obviously delighted about getting the new facility as well. So really positive engagement across the events. And at the same time, we also ran an online survey. And we've had over 700 responses to that survey. We're still finalising the analysis of that at the moment, but we're hoping to share the feedback from that with the community in the next week or so. So yeah, we can certainly share that back. But yeah, as the project progresses, we'll continue to engage with the community throughout the different stages of the project.
Yeah. Thank you. Just a small follow-up, Chair.
Yes, that's okay. Bear in mind, you can have obviously discussion with officers offline on the more smaller details, but let's stick with the principles if we can. Ross?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thank you to the officers for their answers and their engagement with this. I think the people of Larkhall do deserve, a full-sized games hall. That the sharing of facilities is can sound like a good idea, but the feedback we've been getting is that would still be a downgrade over what we have just now, and I think we deserve something that is something more than a downgrade in terms of the facilities available, not the quality of those facilities. But if that's the way we're going in terms of that campus look, then an agreement of exactly how that's going to work, set out early on, as early as possible, can only be a good thing. But thank you.
Thanks very much. I think it's fair to say the council has struggled against the original figure of about £11 million or so to find the £24 million we're now talking about here. And it really is a matter of, that's pretty much as far as can be gone. We're now trying to talk about delivering the thing within its umbrella, as has been said by David. Kenny McCreary.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. So my questions were almost the same as Councillor Clark, so I'm not going to ask them. I'm not going to ask the same questions over again. But just one point I would ask. I realise there's been some consultations done in this, but it's not my ward, obviously, so I'm not all that close to it. But one of the suggestions has been that when the points have been raised at the consultations, they haven't had any feedback. So questions have been asked of the architect, I think, who attended maybe all of the meetings, but they didn't get fed back on they asked the questions but didn't get the answers. Let's put it that way. So could that perhaps be addressed, I wonder? Thanks, Chair.
Gillian, do you want to say anything about that?
Yes, sorry, just to say that we are actually collating the findings from the different consultation events and the online survey, and we will be providing feedback to the community in the next week or so.
Yeah, thank you. Andy Carmichael.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, that's great, Andy.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. This has been a long, drawn-out process and a project for many, many years, and I'm glad to say that it's come to fruition. And I would put it down and congratulate this administration for securing the additional funding that was necessary to complete this project. Can I bring you back to page 127, 4.9? Various site investigation surveys are underway and advanced demolition works are currently being investigated. Are we at the point, have we identified as this being a possibility of demolition of certain parts of the old building? Thanks.
Gillian?
We still don't have a definitive answer on that as yet, but as I said, site investigations are underway at the moment. There may be a possibility we need to demolish a small part of the existing centre to make way for the construction of the new centre, but we should hopefully have a better idea of that in the coming weeks. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Presumably details like that you'll keep in touch with local members about anyway as it progresses, yeah? Okay, thank you very much. Can I
Thank you. Thank
move
you.
the report if there's no other questions on that one?
I'll second it.
The report is approved, I think, with some pleasure on that one. Can I move on to item 13, Centre West at East Kilbride Master Plan Update, pages 131 to 136. We're back to Alison Brown on that one.
Thank you. This report provides an update on activity associated with Centre West and the East Kilbride Town Centre Master Plan. In April this year, this committee endorsed entering into heads of terms with the administrator of Centre West for the transfer of the centre to the council. This decision was ratified by the Executive Committee in May this year. To realise the master plan, again in April 2024, this committee endorsed realignment of the City Deal funding to activity in the town centre. This change control was approved by the City Region Cabinet in August, with the outline business case being presented for approval to Executive Committee next month, ahead of the City Region Cabinet in February. In respect of heads of terms for Centre West, these have been agreed and endorsed by the Executive Committee on the 13th of November. Subject to contracts, Centre West will transfer to the Council on the 30th of December next year. The remainder of the shopping centre is currently on the market, and it actually has a closing date of Thursday this week. The team are also developing proposals for a civic hub, which within the master plan was to be located on the site of the current bingo. Further sites have been considered, and having undertaken a full site evaluation, it's considered that the Centre West site offers the greatest opportunity, whilst also accommodating residential development. Key services performed in the Civic Centre will be provided within the Civic Hub proposals. It is acknowledged that within the Civic Centre is the Ballarat Hall, which would be re-provided again within the new Civic Hub. As previously reported to the Executive Committee earlier this year, the Civic Centre is currently being marketed with a closing date set for the end of January. Thereafter, consideration will be given to any offers received and whether a sale will proceed at that time. Turning back to the recommendation, committee is asked to note the contents of this report.
Thanks very much, Alison. And questions on that report from John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. Just checking if you can hear me all right.
Yep.
Yeah. I've got a few concerns about this right from the start. One, through what I refer to probably as a carry-on consultation with folk and the drop-in sessions as to where this civic hub was going to be. And I say it's a carry-on because they could not influence anything in it, because the administrators had made it quite clear that they were not going to change what was in the master plan. Now we're being told this master plan is completely changed. So we've also put in an outline business case for City Deal. Does that alter or nullify that outline business case, the fact that we're moving it? We've then got the East Kilbride Civic Centre, and we also have a housing crisis. So by moving this civic hub to Centre West, we're losing 50 to 100 houses. So I think the solution would be to build the civic hub on the civic centre and build 300 to 400 houses on Centre West, which would help with the housing crisis. We're going to be left, I think, with a town centre with virtually no car parking spaces, because I take it when they sell the civic centre, will sell the public car parking spaces. I've already raised concerns about that. We're talking now about building a hotel and a supermarket at the other end. And I think if MD's listened to Labour's first budget, it's condemned by the hospitality and the retail sector. So I don't know how we're going to manage that. And the administrators are now going to have to fill this void where the civic hub and open space was going to be, when really there's no many people opening up shops or hospitality places. So I have really concerns about this whole thing. I think at the end of the day, as I said before, when the administrators were there, their only aim is to sell this town centre and get the money in. They'll never be back in East Kilbride, and we could be left with a white elephant here. So I have grave concerns about this. Thanks, Chair.
Alison, do you want to make some observations on that?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. A number of points in there, and I'll take them in turn, and if I've missed anything, please do jump back in. The bingo hall site was identified as the preferred location for the civic hub at the time of the master plan, and the reason for that is it's very much in the heart of the town centre, trying to get the footfall into the town centre. We made approaches to the administrators to see if we could carve out that site with from the sale of the Sapphire 16, the trading part of the shopping centre, and that was deemed not to be possible. So bringing forward a civic hub proposal, it would be remiss of us not to be in control of that site for any funding. So that is one of the reasons that the Centre West site is identified currently as the potential site for the civic hub. Another reason is the bingo hall site. For those that know East Kilbride very well, that part of the shopping centre slopes, and there would be differences in levels, and it'd be quite complex and probably more expensive to build. That said, as I highlighted in the report, Sapphire 16 is on the market and offers are expected by the receivers this Thursday. We would be keen to have discussions with any party, and indeed officers have been liaising with interested parties, but we envisage having a relationship with the future owner, and that's not to say that couldn't be re-explored if they were minded to do so. But at the moment, we need to look at a site that we can control and that we could build the civic hub on. In terms of the hotel and supermarket proposition, that is entirely at the hands of the administrator, and the council is not party to those detailed discussions, although I believe heads of terms are very well advanced with a supermarket provider and a hotel operator. So that is for others to fulfil that on, albeit that we would be supporting that through statutory planning process, etc. So the Civic Hub is a huge project within East Kilbride. It's important that we ensure that we capture the community uses that are already in the Ballyrup, and that we try and make that civic hub building work as hard as possible. So it needs to be flexible for community space and also provide some essential front of house space for the council as well.
Yeah, there's the practical element to this. The council doesn't control all the levers here, and it's got to be something which is built on relationships and available funding and so on. David Watson.
Thanks, Chair. I welcome this report, but I've also got a number of concerns about it, probably some similar to Councillor Anderson's. To me, we've moved quite substantially from what was previously discussed and agreed by this committee and I think the full council at one point. So I'm not quite sure if we actually should be getting more detail about this. To me, I'm still not quite sure what a hub is. I mean, we talked about a hub, and to me that was going to be the centre of the town centre. It was going to include an arts venue, it was going to include cafes and bars and council facilities. But now we're moving a hub, which is the centre, to the periphery of the town centre, so it's really not going to be a hub. It might be a council office, but what shape is that council office going to be? We really need to get some clarity on that. We're also going to be taking what we're classing, and I'll use the word hub, although I hate it, away from the ice rink in the library, or the proposal to move the library down to this peripheral area, but you can't move the ice rink. So again, it would make sense for me to have all that sort of within close proximity and allowing people to travel into that. Moving on to the, the Civic Centre site. At the outset here, I have to say I was disappointed to find out through social media that the Civic Centre site was actually physically being marketed. We did know about it was coming, but I think staff, although it says in here staff were notified, I've had staff talking to me, they didn't know it was going to be marketed when it was marketed, and we as councillors, and I know myself and I know other councillors, received phone calls and folks stopping us in the street asking what's going on. So it would have been good to have a bit of a heads up on that, but that we are where we are. But we're talking about moving the Ballarop Hall to the hub. Is that Ballarop Hall going to be an equivalent hall? We've just spoken about Black Hall being downsized from a large games hall to a badminton hall. What can we be reassured that we're going to have a suitable entertainment venue in East Kilbride Town Centre? Moving on to the actual Civic Centre itself, where we employ people. In 2019, I did a work, and the 10 years prior to that, the council were down 250 jobs in East Kilbride Town Centre. When Athol House closed and some services moved into the Civic Centre, over that 10-year period from 2009 to 2019, 250 jobs lost were moved out of East Kilbride or elsewhere. What guarantee are we going to get that the staff that are in East Kilbride Civic Centre at the moment will move to a new facility at the hub? Because you did mention there, Alison, it was just going to be a front of house facility. There's a lot more goes on in East Kilbride Civic Centre with employment, and if we're wanting a vibrant town centre, surely we should be trying to encourage that our own staff are located in there as well to help and assist with that vibrant town centre, and not a further job drain from that area. Maybe just welcome comment. Thanks.
Okay, Alison.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Turning back to the Civic Centre and why we're marketing it, you may recall that we did a piece of work last year looking at an existing company business in East Kilbride that was looking to relocate, and we did some considerable design work and indeed identified a partner, an investor who was going to build this new office facility in the heart of East Kilbride to secure these jobs. So the points that you make around getting footfall, securing jobs in East Kilbride was absolutely, our starting point. Unfortunately, that company, that entity, no longer chose to create a new build opportunity in East Kilbride. But as I say, we had spent some considerable time and money on design fees. So it felt just and reasonable that we took that offer in terms of the design work that we'd done, and potentially the investor that we had sitting alongside us, to the market, and hence that is why we went out to the market to see what market interest there is in the Civic Centre site. If we receive any offers on the 30th of January, those will be fully considered, and we have marketing agents, Avison Young, working with us, and it will be at that point in time for the council to consider whether any of those offers are of interest, or indeed if now is the time to sell the Civic Centre site. So that's why we've come to where we are. It was really on the coattails of another issue that we had been dealing with last year. In terms of the employees that are in Civic Centre and those that then would move to the Civic Hub, that is undoubtedly part of a bigger piece around the asset review of the council and how we move forward with that. And colleagues in Housing and Technical Resources are leading on a piece of work around what our council estate looks like and where that shapes. So I will be looking for input from them as to the number of offices that we require within the Civic Hub. That's not to say there aren't other locations within the town centre that we could potentially put back of house functions in. You also talked about what could be in the Civic Hub. So absolutely, there's an opportunity to bring the library into this space, the arts venue, a replacement for the Ballarat Hall, and to truly create a venue that has offices, but it works 24/7, so it works really hard. We're also in very interesting discussions with South Lanarkshire College about them potentially using this space at night time. So there's a real opportunity to create something much wider than just a community and council asset, but actually bring in other partners and potentially revenue sources as part of that. So this is the start of a journey, and this outline business case that we're developing is very much an outline business case to allow us to get into the detail of a lot of this, to work up the full business case that undoubtedly will come back to both members in the future, but to continue these discussions and importantly to continue to engage with the community in East Kilbride. The consultation that we held in the shopping centre last year, the footfall through that shop was phenomenal, and that just shows the pride that East Kilbride residents have in their shopping centre and as they rightly see it, their town centre, and we will continue to engage with them in the future as well.
Can I bring David in first, if I may?
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much, Alison. It's really just to say that it's right and proper, Councillor Watson, Councillor Anderson, to ask all these questions. It's a hugely important undertaking for this council and hugely important for East Kilbride. I think what Alison is demonstrating there, this is a very dynamic situation. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of different people involved in it. What we're trying to do is where we can is to continue to bring reports to you on the progress of that, and we've got more reports coming up to different committees as well through this undertaking. But it is a massive undertaking, and it will change and twist as it goes around. But officers are across this, or across all the different parts of it, and we're determined to keep elected members engaged and updated, as well as their communities updated as it develops. Thanks.
Has a feel of one of these 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzles, doesn't it? Are we joining it all together? David, did you want to come back?
Thanks, David and Alison, for that. I get it. It's a fluid situation we're in, but as you say, it's our town centre. It's the community's town centre. We really need to know what's going on, and what I don't want to, and what's happened in the past, is be presented with a fait accompli that this is what we've ended up with, and we'll come back and somebody will say, but you discussed it at an executive committee today and this date, but really we've got a direction of travel here, but we've got no detail on it. And I think I personally would like more detail before we sign off anything on this. But
could I say, David, we're not being asked to sign anything off. This is a noting of the report.
Robert, but in the past, things have happened that will go and they'll say, oh, you've discussed it there and all the rest of it, and then that's deemed as being appropriate. But before we get to a stage that it's all the paint's dry on something, we really need to have councillor involvement in seeing what we're getting in our town centre. Because this came out of the blue again, going to a periphery location and not a hub. And that's just maybe a prime example. Thanks, Chair.
David.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Watson, we'll make sure that people are engaged where we can engage with you, in particular elected members. As I say, we're not at a stage where we have that detail at the moment, because we're still dealing at a kind of macro level with these big parts. But we will engage you. Just one point, when you mention about a hub moving to the periphery, bearing in mind when you look at the town centre in terms of the original sort of master plan, where that was going to be compared to where it might be now, because everything from from Boots onwards is coming down, so it's actually not that far away from where this hub might be. So I get your point. It's in a different space, but I don't know if it's particularly that far away from where it currently is at the moment. So, thanks.
Right, I think, David, I'd like to move on to other colleagues, if I may.
So, I mean, it's the furthest point away from the bus station.
Yeah. Could I come to Jerry Convery, if I may? We'll come back to John Anderson in a minute.
You'll need to press the button.
Jerry.
Just leave it.
All right. Yeah, thanks, Chair. As an East Kilbride councillor, and I hear what John and I hear what David's saying, but I'm not going to sign off anything if I don't know what I'm signing off. Officers can come with whatever they like, but we'll decide. And as David and Alison said, it's no set in tablets of stone, because it's changing every month, every week, because the game players are changing. It's a whole new concept. We're going to be basically written a town centre, which at one time it was the busiest town centre in the west of Scotland, and it's going to disappear, and a whole new thing is going to be brought out of it. And I mean, we talk about, or David talked about the Civic Centre. Civic Centre's fallen to bits. It's a precast concrete piece of crap. It's been there for the 60s. So we've got to look at things. We've got to. This is a moving target, and it's okay saying I'm totally with John and Davey in this. We're not going to sign off anything. There's not going to be any secret meetings to decide it, and they'll come to a committee and we'll just rubber stamp it. That I wouldn't tolerate that. The people of East Kilbride wouldn't tolerate that. And the guys that I've just spoke about there wouldn't tolerate that. So I've got every confidence that Alison will come back time and time again, as she has done, to committees and different committees to give us an update. But we're not at the situation where the final report's got put before us, and whether it be the full council or the executive committee, we'll endorse what we want to see in the East Kilbride Town Centre. So I've got every faith in the officers that they'll come back with proposals. If we don't like the proposals, we'll tell them to go away and look at the proposals again. Dead simple.
Thanks very much, Jerry. I think that's the core point. I mean, the council doesn't have control of all the levers here. We're trying to fit it together. There are financial issues in the background as well, obviously. There are opportunities, however. Let's not lose track of that too. And I think that this is a report for noting, so let's not go on to too much detail. We don't have all the detail yet. That's going to come in future reports, and we'll get the opportunity to make decisions later. Can I come back to John Anderson, who I think will be the last contribution here?
Thanks, Chair. A couple of points. I mean, Alison spoke about the hub originally going to be in where the bingo hall was, and then we've now discovered that with 2 different levels, and there was all sorts of problems, couldn't have it. Surely that should have been looked at first before we drew up this master plan and went to the people of East Kilbride and said to them, this is what you're going to get. The second thing is, there's not all East Kilbride councillors are either on this committee or the executive. Why is this not coming to the East Kilbride Area Committee, so that all the East Kilbride councillors of all the parties can have their say on it? There's only a certain amount of councillors on this committee, and they're not all on the executive committee. They're unaware of the discussions that's going on, and I think that should be there should be a master plan. It should be thought out, it should be worked out, and then brought to the area committee so that all East Kilbride councillors could have their say.
There's a report for noting. The East Kilbride Area Committee can ask for reports on this if it wishes to do. That's not within our domain. It's perfectly reasonable.
All due respect, this is a report for noting of a major change. that nobody knew about.
At a stage when we get major changes to propose, then we'll bring it before committee in one form or another.
You have a major change. You're moving this hub from the town centre, as David Watson was saying, to peripheral.
As has been said before, I don't want
not one East Kilbride councillor was consulted on it. Not one knew about it.
I don't want to overgo on this, but it's a report for noting. We've not got detail yet. This is not a finalised proposal of any kind. And when we've got a position that there's proposals of a more detailed nature to come, that'll come back to committee. Alison, do you want to say anything else on that one? Are we?
But it's minutes of difference.
Sorry, say again?
The original proposal, it's minutes of difference. They're walking to it. It's not at the other end of the world. It's within the curtilage, the town centre.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to bring this discussion to an end. As it is a report for noting. Does either Alison or David want to say anything else in conclusion? Or are we finished with that? Thank you very much. Can I move the report for noting?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to item 14, which is the pavement parking update, pages 137 to 144. Colin Park, his moment of glory is arriving now. Colin, can you speak to this one?
Thanks, Chair. And good afternoon, everyone. This is a report just updating members on the proposal to introduce pavement parking. Members may recollect a similar paper last November. So, as reported back in November, the Part 6 of the Transport Scotland Act introduced legislation for a national ban on pavement parking, double parking and parking at drop curbs to make it easier for local authorities to ensure pavements and roads are safer and more accessible to all. Section 3 sets out a full background there, but just kind of picking up on some of the key points. The regulations were enacted on the 11th of December, which was just after our community enterprise last November, and that now provides local authorities with the powers to enforce these new prohibitions. Since that time, the council has been working on a kind of whole range of areas to kind of try and bring the proposal to the fore. Lots of local authorities across Scotland have been kind of wrestling with the same issues in terms of back office. Some have commenced enforcement themselves, and Dundee have done it. Glasgow are looking to do it as well, but I think kind of the approach has been quite mixed across the whole of Scotland. Some don't even have kind of decriminalised parking enforcement in place, noting we've had it in place since 2005. So as agreed back in November last year, what we've been doing since that time, we've been taking a soft approach across South Lanarkshire, and in Appendix 1 you'll see some of the kind of postcards and leaflets that we've been issuing. To date we've not issued any formal penalty charge notices, although we have had some kind of deployment of these postcards across the kind of patch to some extent. We've also been doing a bit of work in terms of identifying some areas of potential exemptions. That's just where we've been looking at all roads across South Lanarkshire. We get a consultant in to support us in that. And this was just to identify an initial pass of where some exemptions may be required. I remain a little bit cautious about that work that's been done. The reason being, I think it's a useful reference document, and we say that at 4.5, but I think that needs to be used as a baseline for us to better understand areas that the public bring to our attention, members bring to our attention, and then we'll kind of maybe overlay them and better understand that as we move forward. I would point you towards paragraph 4.6, where the Scottish Government guidance explicitly states that they don't expect exemptions to be the norm. We're looking to enforce this across the patch, across town centres, across residential areas. Again, I think as we said in the paper last November, the principle and the rationale for this legislation is sound. It's trying to make our kind of public realm safe and accessible for all. In terms of next steps, what we're doing here is we are finalising our back office system, new enforcement documents, we're doing system coding for the offences, we're printing just the basics, the new ticket rules. Much of that is now in place, and a test system is presently being trialled to ensure it's functioning correctly. We're training our parking attendants in the new legislation, the new rules, the new regulation as well. We're also putting our parking attendants through a kind of customer care, kind of customer focus training exercise as well, just to remind them of what potentially could be a kind of challenging piece of legislation when we implement, just to kind of bring them up to speed with some of the kind of maybe skills and focus that they need to do that in a seamless way. In terms of enforcement, what we are now looking at doing is bringing in proper enforcement. It actually says the 1st of January there. If you note at the start of the report, I think that's a typo. It should be the 6th of January, because I'm certainly not going to start enforcing on New Year's Day. It's going to be a challenging enough piece of legislation to bring in, but the 1st of January it won't be, so it will be the 6th of January 2025. Importantly though, we'll continue to consider the impacts under the displacement that will be experienced across in towns and villages. Some areas of South Lanarkshire towns or residential areas are under severe pressure from parking, and a balance has to be struck, and we're going to try and do that in a kind of balanced and a proportionate way. That will be the core of any formal operational enforcement activity that we undertake. I want to be extremely careful as well about introducing new or intensifying any new neighbour disputes. So the expected first course of action in residential locations will be probably maybe a greater deployment of some of those postcards, just to identify to residents, to communities that, you know, let's be mindful of what's happening with your neighbours, park in a sensible way. The next stage will be, you know, maybe more focused enforcement, penalty charge notices going in and issuing tickets as well. But again, I can't stress it enough, just that balanced approach, and for us as officers, as we do just now with kind of road safety inquiries, speeding inquiries, just take and try and get an understanding of what's happening in the area, and do it on a case-by-case basis. You know, one size is not going to fit all with this at all. And I'm sure, you know, many members in the room today and online as well will appreciate that, you know, issues over parking that you've written into me before on. So we now have a new tool in the toolbox here that we're in control of. The police will still have some kind of powers to deal with obstruction, but between us and the police, hopefully we can introduce this legislation effectively. So essentially, just kind of maybe sort of picking up on a couple of last points. At present, we've got 14 full-time equivalent parking attendants. We currently have 5 vacancies as of today. That's a bit of a rolling programme there of recruitment. We brought in a few new parking attendants a few months ago, and then we lost a few more. We've also got a new parking unit team leader brought into post a few months ago, a gentleman called Alan Band, who's brought a new focus and a new bit of direction to the team. So that's going to be useful. Enforcement will have to be undertaken though within line with the kind of the number of parking attendants we have and the kind of funding we have as well. But like any kind of level of service that we deliver, that will kind of form part of enforcement considerations. At this moment in time, any income that we generate from these new powers is expected to contribute towards the kind of ongoing running costs of the parking service, and we don't expect it to generate any significant additional income at that stage. We'll obviously keep that up to date, and that will be reported through the usual kind of financial reporting programmes. Again, if we do move forward with any exemptions, there is a discussion to be had with Transport Scotland and the Scottish Government about the costs associated with that. But at this moment in time, we're not proposing any exemptions, and matters will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So just turning back to the beginning of the report, the committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: the contents of the report be noted, and that the commencement of formal enforcement from the 6th of January 2025 be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Colin. Quite a difficult subject matter. Can I ask for questions and go to Ross Clark?
Yes, thank you again, Chair, and thank you to Colin for that report. I think I would welcome this. I think a lot of people were kind of waiting to see when the council would start enforcing this. It's good to see that it is happening in the new year, although not on New Year's Day, as you've said. I think it's important to remember this is an issue that affects a lot of disabled people, in particular those who use wheelchairs and have other mobility issues, which can find it hard to get past a car that's parked on or partly on the pavement. But also one issue that's been brought to my attention is people who are blind or have sight loss. Even if they are able physically to get by, they wouldn't maybe notice a wing mirror that's, you know, poked out, or if they even have a guide dog wouldn't be able to notice that. So I've had that issue brought to myself. But in terms of question, are you happy to work with elected members to maybe identify some particularly problem areas? I'm sure we've all had it being brought to our attention, certain areas which might be a problem for that, and also will we be promoting this to members of the public, that the enforcement is starting, and also ways in which members of the public can report this?
Colin?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Clark, for that one. So we've obviously got a lot of our local knowledge already, and clearly last November when we brought the paper to committee, and it was around about the same time as Transport Scotland launched a publicity campaign. So members, communities, etc. have already made us aware of some areas. So we've got that exemptions list that we were considering. We've got other high-profile areas as well where some members have already made us aware of. So again, yes, more than happy to engage with us, and I'll look to try and give as much of a positive response I can with the available resources we've got. So we will look to put the resources where they're needed the most. We are learning from this as well. You know, it may be that there is scope through maybe additional income coming in at some point to expand the kind of number of parking attendants we've got, but at this moment in time we can't even recruit what we need to deliver what was our core enforcement service. So yeah, more than happy to work with you and communities as well if you want to kind of just make us aware, and obviously other members as well.
Thank you, and I'm glad the balanced approach has been taken. Thank you.
John Anderson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just a bit concerned that with the employees, 6.1, that we've got 5 vacancies. And you said this is a rolling problem where you recruit 2 and then 2 leave, or whatever it is. I know it's not always as simple as that. The other thing is, most people, when they're parking on the pavement, is in the evening. So when folk come home from their work, most complaints that I get are people phoning after 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night saying that there's people parking on the pavement. How do we deal with that? Will there be a number that the public and the elected members can phone and somebody would deal with it? Or is it just a case we deal with it, report it, and then somebody might come out the next night, or they might not be parked on the pavement? And I'm just wondering how that part of it is going to be enforced. Thanks.
Colin?
Thanks, Chair, and Councillor Anderson as well. Just kind of your first point about recruitment. There's been a wee bit of uncertainty over the last kind of couple of years within the parking team, just obviously with a team leader vacancies, you know, this key piece of legislation coming through. We've now got a new team leader in place. One of the things he's tasked with doing is motivating and encouraging our staff to one, stay with us, to recruit good quality staff to kind of fill some gaps. Again, one of the issues we have here is, you know, this particular piece of legislation came forward. Colleagues in North Lanarkshire, who have managed to recruit a few of our members of staff, are growing their enforcement team. So clearly, you know, a neighbouring authority is always going to be attractive. I don't think it's a pay issue, but just some people have chosen to take a new opportunity. So it's our job now is to make it attractive for us people to come and work in South Lanarkshire. It's maybe not the most enjoyable job. You don't very often have a real positive interaction with a parking attendant, but that's why we're looking at improving the kind of parking attendants' customer care, skills, knowledge, so they can maybe be seen as more of an asset within our town centres. They're not just there to issue tickets, they're there to engage and kind of guide how a town centre operates. So that's from the recruitment point of view. In terms of the kind of evening issues, again, just to be absolutely honest with you, we're not going to have an on-demand service here. You know, nobody's going to phone up at 7:30 at night and say there's somebody parked outside, come and give a ticket. You very rarely get that now, even from the police. But what we would look to do, if that was become a problem, we would look to try and identify the resources needed to do some level of enforcement over the next short period. Kind of current hours of working for our parking attendants. I'm sure you all probably had a letter from me in the past. We don't routinely have evening enforcement, but we do occasionally do it. One of the tasks that Alan Band, the new parking team leader, I've asked him to do is just to look at what our shift rotas are. You know, the shift rotas have been in place for the last 15, 20 years, but our town centres have changed. Hybrid working as well. You know, some of the parking problems actually happen during the working day now because cars have still been parked at home. So again, that will allow us an opportunity, Councillor Anderson, to maybe adjust rotas. Again, not publicising when we're going to be getting into towns and villages or residential areas, but it's something we're working on. As I said earlier on, it'll be a case-by-case basis. We're still learning. Local authorities across Scotland are learning. We're here, I'm in obviously various groups and listening to colleagues from Dundee. There's a seminar tomorrow in that, Glasgow as well. So very much work in progress. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, David McLachlan.
Thanks, Chair. Welcome this report. I've got nothing negative to say about it. However, there is going to be some difficulties. You spoke earlier in your report, Colin, that will be implemented in town centre and residential areas. Now, anybody with a densely populated residential area, any of those councillors will know that just about everywhere has got that same problem. And what I'm worried about is if the cars where they're parked at the moment are causing this problem, and it has been pointed out, and I've had several complaints myself from people who have to try and get onto get a road with a wheelchair and not able to do it because of the height of the curb, so they've had to come back quite a considerable distance. So there's a real negativity there about people who are inconvenienced by this, and worse. But it's a worry about where where are people going to go now when there just isn't that space. You know, it's one of these questions that I don't know anybody that will be able to answer it. But you mentioned, and I'm sure we spoke about this a way back, it will be selected areas. It wouldn't be just residential areas per se. It was more, I think, and I don't mean to put words in your mouth here, but it was perhaps you said areas where there's more of a problem you'll be targeting rather than just making it a rule for every residential area. Because I mean, I'm just looking around my ward at the moment and thinking if we're going to take every single vehicle off the pavement, there just isn't enough space for these people to park their cars. Now that's I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it because of that. It's just one of these problems that's going to crop up. The other thing you spoke about the cost and the fines. Now, some irresponsible so-called journalist who's got a Facebook page in the Blantyre area had already publicised something that where it had been implemented in Blantyre, and I and you and everyone else here knows that that was not the case. But the criticism of it was, the public perception is, this is a council just trying to make money. Now, I spoke at the time when we increased the parking, the penalty charge notice, and even after the increase, I think the resource, that particular unit, the parking unit, still runs at a loss, even with the increased costs. So I think some publicity would be really good here, just to make sure that people don't think this is a way of making money, because there isn't money to be made. You spoke about it yourself, about the lack of parking attendance we have, and where you're actually going to put tickets on cars. It's going to be a small amount of money, and in no way, I'm saying this, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, and in no way, shape or form is this going to increase revenue for the council, because the unit runs at a loss. It doesn't make enough money through ticketing to cover the cost of the unit. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Colin, and if that's the case, I'd like to see some publicity here that this is being done, it's been implemented for the right reason and not for cash generation. Thanks, Chair.
Colin.
Thanks, Chair, and I think lots of kind of valid points, Councillor McLachlan. Probably the kind of key message I would say just now is, you know, from the 6th of January 2025 across South Lanarkshire, if you park in a footway, you could get a ticket across the board. Simple as that. And that's the message that we're looking to get across. It's the message that the Scottish Government brought in last year. We're working with James and Tom and PR to get that message across. I think the focus, certainly at the start of it, will be why we're doing it, and it won't be explicit that we're doing it not to raise money. We're doing it for the reasons that, you know, keep footways open, assist people to get about, those with impairments, etc. That will be the focus of the message. I think there's maybe an underlying message in there about, you know, it's not been done to kind of generate additional income. I would share your concerns 100%. I think every member in here as well is concerned about how, you know, if we took every car off every footpath in South Lanarkshire, we'd have a problem. In fact, I don't think we could do it. So I think some of our communities have maybe found an equilibrium in how they're operating just now. Some haven't. Some people are parking totally inappropriately, impacting upon their neighbours without any real due consideration of what their needs may be. And that's where it's a learning point for us. And we will be, as Councillor Clark said, we'll be responding to, you know, areas that we already know, areas that are brought to our attention. Clearly, whatever PR campaign we bring out in the next couple of weeks will obviously raise that awareness, and I would expect to get emails, phone calls. I've no doubt you guys will as well. So I share the concerns. It's across the board though. You know, inevitably we might end up targeting particular areas, but anywhere in South Lanarkshire, if you park in the footpath, you're committing an offence, and we could come and issue with a ticket. Simple as that. That's the key message from today.
Okay, Chair, on the finance side of it,
on the finance,
the people thinking it's a cash cow.
Certainly not, and inevitably we're currently, we were running at a significant loss immediately after COVID. We are running at a reduced loss now, but we're still running at a loss. And again, some of our kind of balancing up and managing it is just by chance just now through the kind of saving of staff salaries because we've got vacancies there. So inevitably this will in some areas bring in an initial income, but if we're successful, that income disappears. Do you know what I mean? You know, so it might be an initial issue for us to consider, but it's not a long-term cash cow as many people out there in the parking world think.
Very conscious of time. We're moving on a little bit here.
One very short supplementary, Chair, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Okay, go on.
Colin, I think you've intimated in what you responded there is it's a common sense approach, and I'm going to give one example. I think it's Millgate Road or Mill Road in Fairhill. It's a very wide pavement. The cars park in the pavement all the time, and it doesn't cause a problem for any pedestrians. But in effect, those people could get a ticket. It would be a disaster if every one of those vehicles that's parked on the pavement now parked on the road. It would just make that road horrendous.
Yeah.
So the common sense that's encouraging, I think you said you didn't use those words, but I'm using those words, and I'm taking from what you said that there will be a kind of common sense approach. Everybody that's parked on the pavement are liable to a ticket, but are they going to expect a ticket? Everybody that could be parked on the pavement.
Okay, Councillor Susan Kerr.
Yeah, I suppose David touched on it, what publicity, so I was just wanting clarification on when I looked at Appendix 1, warning notice, illegal parking, I'm thinking, well, how is everybody supposed to know about this unless you park on the pavement and you get a ticket? I take it not, because that, you can't leave it to, or you're only going to know when you get a ticket. Will there be lots of publicity out there? Will people know about it? Because if I wasn't part of this council, sitting in these meetings and stuff, I wouldn't necessarily know about it.
Yeah, no.
Right now, I wouldn't know anything.
Yeah, come in. So if you just, if you look at the last picture in Appendix 1, that's some literature from Transport Scotland. They've produced that kind of toolkit for all local authorities to use. So we'll essentially get that, the kind of artwork there, and we'll be pushing out via social media. I've no doubt after today, some local press will pick up the story. I know James is working on pushing it out that way as well. So we'll just work up, subject to today, obviously agreement. We will look push that message out. You're not just going to find out when we've put a postcard on your windscreen. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Colin. Thanks, colleagues, for your contribution to this. It's a difficult area. I think it's got to be put in context, though, as one of a number of powers the council has to enforce particular parking and road traffic type things. It's along with people who park on double yellow lines, people who overstay their time at limited parking locations. It's a traffic management thing in some degree as well. It's almost impossible in some areas, as has been touched on. And to be quite frank, it also goes along with things in the police domain, like zigzags and so forth as well, which are a big problem in our area. I think we need a comprehensive approach to this. The general issue is one of improving driver and controller behaviour, as it were, and making our streets a bit safer for people. It's one of the powers we have. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That report's noted. Now, I'm conscious there's 4 items to go. I think we should be able to do them very quickly without maybe going into too much detail on the reports. Can I move to item 15, which is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Progress Report 145 to 158. Kenny Lean to speak to that one as quickly as you can, Kenny.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I'll be as quick as possible. The purpose of the report is to update the committee on the progress of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund investment plan. At point 3 in the background, it sets out how the programme has been brought to committee before. It sets out the total amount of allocation that the South Lanarkshire Council had of 12.2 million over 3 years, and how we work within the Glasgow City Region's allocation and report through the Glasgow City Region. At 4.1 and 4.2, we give an update on the success and the spend over the first 2 years of the programme, and we show South Lanarkshire Council, along with our city region partners, in terms of the spend. Up until March 2024, we had used just under our allocation, so 81% and £4 million. And that allowed us to roll forward the underspend into Year 3 programme, which we're now delivering on. At 4.3, we update the delegated authority that the Director has had through committee approval to move money around, and within Appendix 3, it sets out what those movements against the investment themes has been. At 4.4, we just say that the budget gave us approval to move money forward. And the second point is Year 3 spend, which we're currently in, we were not given approval to move money into any future spend. So we are tasked with completing full spend this financial year. At Table 3, we set out what the approval in terms of spend has been and where we are. And at point 4.6, we just say that we are still intending to make full spend of the programme within the budget and within the timescales. And then at point 5, we note that the UK government announced during the budget that they would have an additional 1 year of funding in 25-26. However, the budget overall, the UK, would be cut by 40%. At this point in time, we do not know what that means for South Lanarkshire Council, but we have been in contact with the relevant officials. I would go back to point 2, which asks for the committee to note the progress of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund in South Lanarkshire, and that the changes in the appendices under the delegated authority to the Executive Director of Community and Enterprise Resources be noted.
Thanks very much. I don't see any questions. Can I move the report?
Second it.
The report's approved. Moving on to item 16 is the Lanarkshire Business Awards, Excellence Awards, pages 159 to 162. Ian Ross, as briefly as you can again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll keep it very brief. Members are hopefully familiar with the awards, which is a very important date in the business calendar for the combined North and South Lanarkshire businesses. Traditionally, it's been held at Motherwell Concert Hall, but due to the identification of Iraq concrete in the concert hall, that's had to be closed temporarily, and we've looked for a new venue. Through discussions with all venues across North and South Lanarkshire that could conceivably hold the event, we've come to the conclusion that the Gladiators Arena up at Playsport in East Kilbride is the most suitable venue, and a proposal has been reached with the owners of Gladiator Arena, working with their sister company, Cross Baskets Hotel, to provide a suitable venue and catering around that. You'll see at section 6 that the costs have been set out there, but the event is essentially self-funding through both the sale of tickets and sponsorship. North Lanarkshire Council colleagues hold a small contingency on behalf of both councils, so in the event that there is a shortfall, that should be covered. So there is a little bit more detail about background within the report, but again, Chair, just recognising your pressures on time, I'll maybe just leave it at that and come back to the recommendation that asks that members note the content of the report rather than report of the report. So,
Thanks very much, Ian. This is an important event, and I'm glad we've managed to secure it for South Lanarkshire, and that it'll go ahead in a venue of some prestigious nature in the form of Caledonian Gladiators. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Item 17, update of the Community Enterprise Resources Risk Register Risk Control Plan 163 to 188. Gail Forrest to speak again as briefly as you can.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide committee with an update following the annual review of the Resource Risk Register. And I would probably just jump straight to point 5.5 on the report, which shows the main changes to the register are summarised. 2 new council top risks have been added, namely the council inherits commercially unviable shopping centres due to the financial failure of existing owner management companies, resulting in significant financial and operational liabilities for the council. And also, the council fails to comply with its statutory duties by not conducting sufficiently robust impact assessments where the same are required in respect of budget service redesign proposals, leading to potential legal and financial challenges which could result in failure to deliver those proposals. In addition, 2 new resource top lists have been added. The Council fails to deliver town centre master plans, insufficient waste processors to secure competitive bids and provide continuity of service. There are further details in Appendix 2 and 3 of the report if anybody wants to speak through them, but precious time, I think we just jump to point 2 and recommend that the committee are asked to approve the following recommendations at the current position with regards to the resource register.
Thank you very much, Gail, for your commendable brevity on that one. Can I move the report? I don't think there's any questions on that one. And the report's approved. Seconded, thank you. The last item is the notification of contracts awarded, item 18. I don't think you need to speak to this one, David, unless you wish to.
Oh, I was just going to say I don't think I could beat Gail in terms of speed for that anyway, but I'm happy to take any questions in the report. Thanks.
And there are no questions. Can I move the report?
Second it.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. The report's approved. Thank you for your time. It's been a very long agenda, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Keep you